afternoon or evening, whichever it happens to be in your neck of the woods. This is Diana Catherine Plopo with Pages Promotions and Indie Reads TV. In the studio with me today, I have two wonderful guests and some great friends, so this is going to be a fun conversation. I have indie author Andy Lockwood here and his lovely wife, Bailey Lockwood, who is an indie editor. So we're going to talk about all the great relationship things that happen, not in their marriage, but in editing and authoring and everything that goes along with the indie book world. So, welcome.
Thank you.
This is Bailey. We like Bailey. Bailey is with a company called Just Ducky Editing. She's also stepping into a new foray of beginning to publish as well. So we're super happy to have you here. We're going to talk a lot about the nuances of what you're doing and the new things that you're going to be walking into this year. And this is Andy. And Andy writes some really cool stuff. You do horror?
I do horror. I do supernatural fiction, urban fantasy. I dance around in those genres.
Would any of your horror be considered paranormal as well?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that it's your writing is heavier paranormal or heavier horror?
I bounce because so Empty Hallways is a contemporary horror story set in a haunted hospital. So yes, paranormal, but the more focus is the scare, and the tension that builds up between the characters.
So while we're on the topic of Empty Hallways, since I've got the book up on the screen for everybody, tell us a little bit about the plot without giving away too much.
So we start with David, the main character, who is dealing badly with the loss of his wife, and he winds up through a series of misadventures, we'll say, in a hospital where he's being forced to undergo treatment, psychiatric treatment. And it's there where his torment awakens the spirit, and it turns around and starts tormenting the hospital.
Super fun. Would you say that it has a Twilight Zone flavor to it, or is it a different style than that? Is there something that you could compare your style of writing to, like a Twilight Zone?
I mean, Twilight Zone, in the anthological sense, yes. In that I write based on normal life, just slightly askew. So,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Twilight Zone-esque.
So who would be your perfect reader for Empty Hallways?
I would say the people who like to leave their lights on at night. The fans of Stephen King, Kuntz, Ray Bradbury.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Bailey, I understand you edited this book as well?
I did, and I am actually not a fan of horror at all.
So talk to me about that, because I'm not a tremendous fan of horror. I don't like to be scared.
Agreed.
You know, being scared is not that much fun for me. I would much rather, I enjoy the tension. Mm-hmm. I enjoy the sitting on the edge of your seat kind of stuff, but I don't Stephen King is tough for me because I don't like to turn on the lights in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
So do you feel the same way about it?
I do. I am not about the horror. I don't like scary movies. I don't like the buildup and the panic in my chest when I don't know what's going to happen.
So how did you get through editing this?
A series of mishaps. The first night that I edited his work, I was utterly freaked out. And I actually had to jump from the doorway of my bedroom into my bed with the lights on because I was terrified that something was going to grab me from under the bed, because the irrational fear thing.
Sure, yeah.
Everything that he was writing was pulling those irrational fears.
So congratulations, Andy.
Thank you.
Good job there.
Absolutely. There's no monsters under the bed in my books yet.
Not at all.
Yet.
Yeah.
Not a single one. Doesn't matter.
But you were instantly 4 years old again.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I did not have to sleep with the lights on, but that was simply because I just needed to go to sleep. And the quicker I went to sleep, the better.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What's the methodology that you use then to separate yourself from reader mode to editor mode so that you can get through the project and finish it?
With Empty Hallways, it was my first editing job, period.
Okay.
So I did go through and I read it first for content, just so that way I knew the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back through and I read it again to fix what I didn't catch the first time through. And then I read it again. I think I've read Empty Hallways a grand total of 12 times.
Okay.
Possibly more. I know it better than he knows it.
So it doesn't scare you so much anymore?
No.
Okay.
And after I read it the first time, like, the fear went away. I was able to go back into it and it was okay. Honestly, I think the fear made me focus more because it's like this is not my usual genre of reading. So I'm slowing down. I'm not skipping over words. I'm focusing.
That's really interesting that you're able to focus on the technical stuff because it's unfamiliar to you. So you were almost more laser focused with your editorial work.
I feel like that definitely helped when I've moved into other genres and other projects that are more my like happy reading areas. I know I've missed some things because I'm human.
Sure.
But because I've gotten so wrapped into the story that I just needed to know what was happening next.
Yeah, in those instances, when I get so wrapped up into something that I'm editing, I find that it's a good idea for me to say, wait a minute, no red marks in the last 12 pages?
Exactly.
Okay, I need to go back and either read more slowly or sometimes read it backward.
Yep.
So that I'm not caught up in the storyline and I can catch the mistakes and fix those. So it's kind of like chunking it in reverse to be able to find those mistakes.
I've used that trick.
Yeah.
I had to use that trick. When I worked on a 9-book series in urban fantasy, I was so drawn in by the characters and the world, and everything she did was amazing and magical. And I'm like, whoa. We've got like an entire chapter where there's nothing in here. Go back. And so I read the entire chapter backwards. And she's just an excellent writer, and she only had like 3 things that I missed, and they were super tiny. But still, it helped.
Yeah, I've read a couple of authors that have done that for me. Where I've said, I'm so in love with this writing and it's so wonderfully vivid and I'm not finding any mistakes. Now, is that because I'm not finding any mistakes or is that because I'm not paying attention?
Yes.
So, Andy, tell us about House of 13.
House of 13 is my second novel. It seems to be the fan favorite. It's not a horror. It's an urban fantasy kind of supernatural adventure. Ren, our main character, is killed in a bus accident, like right at the beginning of the story. That's not a spoiler. That's how we set her up.
Okay.
And she wakes up after the accident. She's alive, and she is being kind of taken away to a secret place by these girls that she doesn't know, but she feels this kinship to that she can't explain. And she finds out that she's one of these people. They don't know why they exist, but they find out that when they die, they're immortal. And
nifty trick.
Yeah, they've been traveling down the history for 200 years and just kind of sneaking around and pretending to be historians because it's the easiest way to hold on to your stuff.
That's pretty cool. Did you edit this piece as well?
I did.
She did not like this one.
Why?
Editing-wise. She likes the story.
Okay, so Bailey, tell us why this was an editorial challenge for you.
This was an editorial challenge because it was a writing challenge for him. His imaginary friends did not want to tell him the story in linear fashion. They told him the story in scenes and pieces and parts, not in order.
So you got it in scenes and pieces and parts?
No. He went through and, like a madman, printed it off and taped it together and put it up on his walls in the apartment.
Nice trick.
Yes,
And-
it looked like a conspiracy theory, like rope tying everything together.
That reminds me of the meme that's going around on social media right now about, don't hold me hostage because of my browser history because I'm a writer.
Yes.
Exactly. Don't believe I am who I am because of my browser history. And yes, writing keeps me from being a serial killer, so it's a good idea.
Yes.
So, what did you do to combat that from an editorial standpoint? How were you able to take what his imaginary friends didn't want to give him and help to flesh it out into a cohesive novel?
Thankfully, they were willing to provide information to him, but the struggle was helping him to keep in line the fact that they were immortals and not vampires, because they were originally vampires when they first started talking to him.
Okay.
They changed their mind halfway through.
I hate when that happens.
As my original pitch when I was talking about this was going to be Harry Potter with vampires.
Okay.
But I had them in a historical society, and historical societies aren't open in the middle of the night. So, like, right there, I already had a problem.
Got it.
So
Okay. So this brings me to an interesting I'm sorry, we're jumping around, but this is so much fun. Where do you get those ideas? Do you actually sit down and contemplate, okay, today I'm going to write about this and I'd like to go in this direction with it and maybe go down this crimson-colored road? Or do you simply get ideas from dreams? Do you get ideas from wacky things you see throughout your life? How do you get those ideas that you then turn into novels?
I get them from everywhere. I never have a sane, logical idea. Like, I'm going to write this story, and we're just going to go from beginning to end, and it's going to be a story. Like, Empty Hallways, I literally just had that title and was like, it's going to be a ghost story. And so I had to start writing that. With House of 13, there's a house, a mansion in Lansing called the Turner Dodge House. And it's just this beautiful, like, it's a beautiful building. It's got a lot of history behind it. And it's in a beautiful area. And I'm a little obsessed with that house and the location. And I was like,
okay,
wouldn't it be cool if, the people who run this, the people who maintain this house were just always there. They live there forever. And so that starts a story rolling in my head. And, when it finally reaches momentum, I start writing.
So it sounds like you might be similarly afflicted as I am and some of my other writing pals, is that you see story everywhere, every day.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it just happens. And the challenge, at least for me at least, is not so much not having story. The challenge for me is finding the time to write them all down.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find the same thing?
Oh, yeah. Finding the time to write, finding the time to get one story out while the next one is roiling around in your head. I find that, because my brain works the way it does, all of my best writing time is probably while I'm driving in the car.
I hate when that happens. Thank goodness for voice-activated phones now.
Absolutely. But yeah, so, it's just, all the time. There's always a story. There's always 4 or 5 stories in my head. It's just getting them to a point where they're worth writing down and not just like blurb lines where you're like, oh, well, I told that story about that little boy in the hole. I have no idea where it goes from here.
Mm-hmm. So I tried a technique that a friend suggested to me. He said, when you wake up in the middle of the night and you have a story idea, speak it to yourself and imagine yourself putting it in a file in your computer that you can then go back and retrieve when you're conscious, right? So you're almost in a dream state, almost through self-hypnosis. You go in and you file that idea and you put it away. Well, I tried that. It didn't work. Lost the idea. In the morning, I'm standing in the shower going, God, I had this really great idea, and now it was so good, and now I cannot remember it. So what do you do with those ideas in the middle of the night? Are you one of those people that gets up and actually writes them down?
I have had a couple of moments where I have been aware enough to write it down, and it's sleepiness, like, so I'm writing down, like, girl potato clock something, and it makes no sense in the morning anyway.
Sure.
So I've just kind of given up on those ideas, and I figure if they've implanted themselves, they'll grow and they'll become a story that I can't ignore, like the ones I've already written.
Right. So when he has these wacky ideas, the two of you are in a very interesting and unusual situation as author-editor. You're also married people, right? So you share the same environment. You share the same cats. You share the same library, right? So how do you, as partners, balance your life, work, creative stuff? How do you, as a wife, go, okay, he's got this thing going on that he needs to go and write down, but I thought we were having breakfast. How do you, in your head, because I know there are people out there who are married to creatives, how do you balance that and still make it okay that this doesn't become a bone of contention between the two of you?
It's very easy. There are 4 people in our relationship. It's not just the two of us being married. There are 4 individual people. There is author Andy, and there's husband Andy. And there's editor Bailey, and there's wife Bailey. Editor Bailey cannot be mad at husband Andy because he didn't pick up his socks. Editor Bailey needs to worry about author Andy forgetting his commas or putting in too many commas. Additionally, wife Bailey cannot get mad at author Andy for going and being creative. He needs to do the things. He needs to have the space to do the things, and he needs that understanding. So we just stay separate and but together.
Versa.
Yeah.
Because she has these projects. She has things like, there'll be nights where I wanna catch up on TV. I wanna watch things. And we have our shows, so like I can't watch these shows without her.
Sure.
But she'll get a manuscript or she'll get an outline that needs to be handled, ASAP. So she's reading that, and this is a great time. Whether inspiration has struck or not, author Andy's up. Author Andy should be working right now while she is working.
That's a great idea. So the two of you have worked out this mutual work-life balance where one of you is working, so is the other. And that's fabulous.
It's worked out very well.
Yeah. I don't think that a lot of people have considered it that way, but I wasn't in the Married in the Business thing at StokerCon, so I don't know if that came up or not. But it's worked. I mean, Threshold, his new one that's coming out, is the first one that has been mostly written since we've been married. His first 3 major manuscripts at Calendar's End is 12, but 3. Those were when we were just dating and like kind of living together and kind of not. Threshold was completely done with us being married. So that was fun and definitely a good test. Like trying to figure out how author Andy and husband Andy and editor Bailey and wife Bailey worked. And I think it went well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're still together. I would say, well, good for you. Yay. So you mentioned a Calendar's End. So let's talk about that for just a second. If I can get it to come up on the screen, which seems to be a challenge. There we go. So a Calendar's End. This is a collection of 12 books. Kind of, are they novellas or novelettes?
I would lean more towards novelettes. They run between 10,000, 12,000 words each. And it was short format. It was specifically designed to be a serial that was going to occupy our time through 2016.
Okay, so you have 12 separate books, one for each month.
Yep.
And then the omnibus
Correct. That is the compiled
is
12 parts.
all 12, and this book is amazing. This is like, I don't know, 4 inches thick. It's like, okay, it's maybe not that big, but it's big.
You could hurt somebody with
It's a tome.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. What was the idea for this project?
It was simply I wanted to write something every month. I had my first 2 books were NaNoWriMo projects. So I wrote in November, I did nothing in December, and then I'd start, editing and rewriting and everything for the first couple of months of the following year. And then I wouldn't do anything else, until November rolled around again. And I was like, I need to break myself out of this habit.
So it was more of a project of setting up habits, good writing habits.
Yeah.
We tell everybody all the time, in order to be a good writer, you have to write.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it came from, was just, I need to get myself into this regular routine of writing.
I set myself some sort of challenge with every new book. So, Empty Hallways was writing a book. House of 13 was dealing with an ensemble cast. This one was writing more often, purposely writing, getting rid of that excuse that you have to wait until you're in the moment to actually sit down and write, and focus on deadlines. So we had to, she was great. My friend Brian, who does all the covers, was amazing.
And that notion of hitting deadlines. So many of us who are novel writers, we set our own deadlines and we take our time, and this is why my latest novel still isn't done, and right? So how did you find that setting deadlines and keeping them as an individual, you really didn't have an outside force imposing these deadlines on you? This was something you were going to do. Bailey, did you help him with that deadline process? Aside from the support of it?
I'd like to say yes, but I feel like I actually stressed him out more through the whole process because life was exploding in 2016. Just everything was going chaotic. So we would be down to the 25th of the month, and he's like, so where's my edits? And I'm like, they're right here. What are you talking about? Have the thing. It's fine. It helped that the NaNoWriMo of 2015, he wrote January through May.
I wrote the manuscripts for them and then got back to rewriting. So January, I refocused on January and February, and then got myself back on track.
So was this a good experience for both of you to set deadlines? As an editor, you've got deadlines you have to meet. Mm. So was this good practice for you as well?
It was. Just because he had these deadlines, and the first of the month, that's when the new book comes out, period. The end of story, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, it's happening. So it was very much, okay, we get this done. It doesn't matter. Sleep's not a thing until the book is done. So them being the bite sizes that they are, being 10 to 12,000 words a piece, that helped. But at the same time, for the first half of the year, I was running a constant lexicon of these characters and the plot lines and things like that.
Sure, because they're all connected. Mm-hmm.
And trying to keep them straight and be like, oh, hey, this person actually has blue eyes from this book, but you just changed them to green. What? Yeah.
So I would imagine lots of notes on these books.
So many
lots
notes.
Going on.
Yes.
So give me an understanding, just real quick, because we have just a few minutes left in this segment of our time together. There we go. So give me an idea of what the stories are about. You have 12 series books. Kind of reminds me of Dickens. He used to write in series. So give me an idea of the overall plot arc that takes place over these 12 installments.
Okay, so basically we're following Ember, who is the last. She's the representative for December, and you have 12 people, 12 demigods who control the cycle of time. So every year they come back together. They have their ritual where they basically reset the clock on the year, and they get the new year rolling. Except this year, January is dead. and now they're running out of time. They have no idea what's going on, and as the story progresses, this thing that's killing them off is getting more of them and essentially just trying to end the world. And they have to figure out who it is, why it's happening, how do you stop it, or, kiss everything goodbye.
Wow. So would this book, this collection of books, really it's 12, would this concept fall into the paranormal horror? Is it horror? Is it paranormal? Is it super?
I lean more towards supernatural thriller.
Okay.
Just because, I guess by the end of it, once you figure out what it is, it's not really paranormal anymore. But at the beginning, I could see it being assumed as much.
Okay. Awesome. This is, wow. My TBR pile is like 14 feet tall,
Yes.
and every time something new comes in, I just got a new book at Penguicon that a gentleman asked me to review, and so he has a deadline for reviews, and I was like, okay, so now that has to move on top, and as you know, with manuscripts coming and going and shifting, you have this constant back and forth, and lots to read, not enough time.
So much to read.
Yeah. So, Bailey, when you're not editing, what do you read for fun?
Very, very large books. I really enjoy Patrick Rothfuss. They're massive, like this, in teeny tiny font and very narrow margins. Right now, with me doing the drive, I'm doing Audible books, so listening to things help. I am also a horrible person to go back to Harry Potter every 2 seconds. I will reread them 3 times a year because I can.
You just did that on live TV.
I don't revisit books until I've forgotten what they're about.
I'm the same way.
And I can't. If I love a story, it is a part of me and I need it in my life. So between Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, Harry Potter, and Patrick Rothfuss' Name of the Wind, gotta have it every year.
That's great. Thank you so much for this first installment of our show. We're going to have you back again very shortly because there's 2 of you and there's so much more to talk about. But I just want to say thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you coming into the studio and sharing our lives, your lives with us. And we'll see you in the next installment.
Absolutely.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you.